Our meeting to order. First up this evening, we have the Pledge of Allegiance. If everyone will stand and turn towards the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Moving on now to our agenda. First up this evening, I want to seek a motion for the agenda with a few modifications. We need to remove item number 10. The sheriff is out this evening. We also need to move number 5 up to right after our administrative reports. There's been some conflict, so we're gonna try and get them out of here a little bit earlier this evening. So with those amendments, no, there's another person with that. So with those two amendments, I'll take a motion for approval of the agenda. And a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. None opposed? Moving on now to our minutes. Everybody has a copy of our minutes from our public hearing and regular and work sessions from January 6th. If there's no needs for any kind of adjustments, I'll take a motion for approval of all sets of minutes. So moved. And a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. None opposed? Moving on now to administrative reports. Last night I was able to attend Chief Randy Dillard's 40th anniversary for serving as captain. So, or chief. So if you see Randy out in Casher's area, make sure you congratulate him on that act of service. And that's all I have to report this evening. Does anyone else have anything to report?
I think he was really surprised that I don't know how that many people kept the secret that long.
It's a lot. Like 70 people showed up, I think. So it's hard to keep him from knowing.
Yep.
We had a good attendance at the Charles Elders Highway naming ceremony that was last Thursday. That's it.
What's this evening? Donald, turn it over to County Manager Kevin King.
Just want to say a couple quick items. First, the walking path out at the Green Energy Park has been closed for about a month. We are waiting on an environmental assessment before we come up with a plan for reopening that park. So if you do see that in the community, that's kind of what happened. It's just erring on the side of caution. The other one is on February 3rd, we are going to have the Public Safety Service District report, which is on our website now for the public display. And you'll have a public hearing, and at that time you can hear the concerns of the public for that district. So anyway, that's all I've got for tonight. Any questions?
All right, moving on to our amended agenda, and this evening we have Michael Hopkins and Nate Holupka. I'm sorry if I got your name wrong, Nate. Going over our master plan for the Parks and Rec.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Nate Holupka. I work with McGill Associates. What I'm going to do tonight is give you an overview of what took place during the comprehensive Parks and Recreation Master Plan. This will just set a general context as you move into the review of the plan. By all means, if you have questions as I'm going through this, feel free to stop me. So what I want to do is, let's see it. All right. That was a quick presentation. All right, so I want to context it a little bit. This is a slide that we typically go through with virtually every local government. It just kind of describes how most local governments view parks and recreation. On one side, local governments view parks and recreation more as an expense side, to where it's similar to police department or fire department, where you put funds in, you get a service, you get a facility back out of it. On the other side of the spectrum, parks and recreation isn't viewed more as an investment, where yes, you get those same programs, you get those same services, but there's also some impact that happens in the local economy. And typically local governments fall somewhere along the spectrum. What you're going to see is while we go through this tonight, I'm going to talk more from the investment side of the spectrum, because there's a lot of research that supports that. Some of it, I'm just going to hit some of the high points with it here. Parks and Recreation positively impact property values. There's some research out of Texas A&M that says that it's somewhere between 8 and 20%, depending on the location of the park and what's within that park. We also see that Parks and Recreation has an impact on local businesses that want to be drawn to the area. Certainly, y'all understand that. You have a lot of a strong outdoor recreation economy in the area. You've had a lot of positive impacts in that particular area with your Parks and Recreation services. And then the last one is visitor spending. You see that whether it's for festivals, events, or just coming to visit your parks and your amenities, maybe it's to come hike a trail. But all of these areas kind of align research-wise with showing that Parks and Recreation is more in line with that investment mindset rather than just the expense of the house. What I want to go through next is whenever we did your planning, we're going to get into some public input here in a little bit, but first we did some benchmarking for your Parks and Recreation system. We compared this to National Recreation and Parks Association benchmarks through metrics. That's best practice. I'm going to go through some of these, and by all means, stop me if you have any questions. The first thing, one of the things that we looked at whenever we benchmarked your system was your acreage. You're slightly below the median quartile in terms of your park acreage. Now, bear in mind that we understand that your acreage, you're a little bit limited because of your topography, and it doesn't account for the land that's owned by the National Forest or state parks or anything like that. We're simply looking at just your land in the lands that you manage. Now, in terms of per capita spending for Parks and Recreation, we also benchmarked this. We also compared you to other comparably sized counties across North Carolina. You're approaching the national median, and then whenever we compare you to those other North Carolina communities, you're generally outspending those. That points to y'all making a good general investment in Parks and Recreation across the community. Those are some positive things. Now, this is the next system. So whenever we do plans all around the Southeast, and we take we review each one of your parks. The thing that I want you to take away from this is if you see green up here, and you're going to see a lot of it means that your park system is in generally good shape. If you see yellow up here, you have some areas that you may need to address. You have some red areas. It's some areas that may not be keeping up with the rest of your system. I got to tell you, this much green up here, this much positive, y'all, that's not typical. We see a lot of systems that are aging or outdated, that there's not nearly this high level of quality of service that y'all are offering. I want you to take away with this and see that, look, your system really is in good shape. And then we also see there's one area within the system, and I think that there's a general understanding about it. There's one park within the system or one component of a park that's just really not within that same level of quality. But it is something our understanding is that the county's already looked at that and is already making plans to address those needs. Any questions with anything that I've covered so far?
What support facilities?
So support facilities are going to be like your restroom facilities, your shelters, those type of things. Yeah. So any other questions? All right. So now I'm going to start to go in, and I'm just going to hit the highlights here. We did a lot of public input. We had a project webpage that walked the community through what type of input we're going to collect, whether that's in person, public meetings, focus group meetings. We actually did 2 surveys, which I'll go through some of the highlights for that. There was a wealth of public input that was gathered. That's kind of the foundation for understanding what the community wants. So we wanted to make sure that we address that well. So through your public inputs, I'm not going to go through each one of these 10 items, but there's a strong desire in your community for adventure recreation and outdoor recreation, and that should not come as a surprise to you. The other thing that we collected is whenever we're at these public input meetings, it wasn't just resident data that we collected, we also collected visitor input. And what you'll see is there's a lot of commonalities here between what residents want and what visitors want. And that's important. That means that whenever you're developing facilities, or whenever you've already developed facilities, you're not only serving your residents, but you're also helping build out that tourism base. Does that make sense? That's helping grow your economy. That's really positive whenever you have that strong correlation between the two. It also means that whenever you're looking at developing things in the future, anything that you're looking to develop recreation-wise is also going to likely impact that tourism impact. Your focus group meetings, we found a lot of things, and this is important. This does not come up a lot. Residents and staff are proud of the county offerings. I can tell you, if I went to every single community and I heard that, my job would be a whole lot easier. So I want you to be proud of your system because your residents and your county staff are also proud of it. You should be. There are a couple areas that came through the focus group meetings. There's a general opinion that you need some more lifeguards if you're aquatic. there is normally a ramping up period whenever you have a new facility, but that's one that you're also likely competing with other area aquatics. So that's something to focus. You really want to make sure that you're making full use of that asset. You're doing partnerships very well. They feel there's a general consensus is that the county leadership, that would be y'all, have been very supportive of recreation. I think that's important. That doesn't happen across all communities. Trails and greenways are important. I think that's something that's already been important and recognized. Available land. You're in the mountainous part of the western part of the state. There's not flat land all over the place. That's something that you're always going to have to contend with, and we paid mind to that whenever we made our recommendations. And then certainly, and I've already mentioned this before, that the system, there's a recognition that the system is helping the local economy. We did a statistically valid survey. Across the top, I'm not going to go through each one of these, and this is about a 200-page report in and of itself. The biggest thing that I want you to see from this statistically valid survey is that a lot of the top 10 items that you'll see in that upper right-hand corner have to deal with environmental education and supplementary things, whether it be splash pads, amphitheaters, additional trails, public arts. You're not seeing a ton of active recreation needs. And it's likely because, and what we're going to get to is you're serving a lot of those needs right now. These are additional things that would really help you move towards rounding out your system. Any questions with that? And again, I'm just hitting the high points to be able to go into detail whenever you review it.
You got 18,164 households here. That's who you surveyed for this?
No, so good point. It was a statistically valid survey, which means that we had a sample size that we did. It was about 400 people, and then that was representative to the 95th percentile of what the population was. So it was done in academic standards, just the same way you would if it was a normal academic research, to where the sample size was set based on your population. So this is indicative of what the entire population would want based on that sample size.
Do you know how many of those people were from the Casters area?
In this particular case, it was more demographically stratified. What I will do is we actually did another survey that looked more geographically, and I'll actually get to that here in just about a couple seconds. That helped us draw out those geographic differences. All right, so again, continuing with the statistically valid survey, it went into a lot of depth. What this is looking at on the screen here is actually what programmatic need you have. There's a lot of desire from the community. Again, we see environmental education pop up here again. We see fitness that pops up again, but special events. People want to come together. You have a really tight-knit community. You do some of that, and you do a really good job partnering with some of your municipalities on that, but there's a desire for more of it. And it's not because you're not doing a good job with what you have. It's actually a reflection that you're doing a good job and they would like more of it. Any questions with that? Okay. And this, Commissioner Jennings, this is kind of getting at your question. This is an overview of that second survey. Now, this particular survey was open to all community members. It was actually posted in multiple different places, including the project page. The way that we did this survey was to understand that public need, but we also broke it up geographically. So, and this is just the tip of the iceberg about what we found out, but this is where we can find out the difference in needs in maybe the southern portion of the community versus the northern and so on. And what you do see is you see some common interests, but you do see some specific differences that kind of pop, whether it's the southern portion or the northern portion of the county. This is just a little bit of that information. The plan will go into greater depth. Does that make sense while we had the two different survey pages?
Yeah. Can you go back one slide? Do you
Yes,
mind? So these numbers, 6817, 6386, 6108, where do they come from?
So that is that's the projection on with the statistically valid survey, that they're taking those responses that they got from that and projecting that onto the total population.
So that's basically, those are guesses.
It's guesses in the sense of the same way that you would do with an academic research, that if we wanted to find out what the entire population of the United States was and understand what the entire U.S. would desire in a particular area, you wouldn't sample 100% of the population. You would sample a portion of it and then make generalizations based on that. And we used academic methods. We actually partnered with ETC, which is it's an organization that does surveying for recreation all around the country. It's a noted best practice on how they do it. So whenever you actually review the comp plan, that entire survey report and all the methodology within that is contained within the comprehensive plan.
So you survey 100 people, multiply that up to 40.
Yeah, I want to say it was closer to around 400 people, but yes, and then those 400 people are statistically they're stratified. So based on the different demographic data that we would see across the county, that's how they determine who was actually selected for the survey. And that's why, because that statistically valid survey is more looking at the demographic piece, the open survey is looking more at the geographic piece. And that way we get kind of both pictures. And honestly, between the two surveys, we saw a lot of commonalities, which are helping us see that those two trends between the two surveys and the open data are aligning.
On the special events, is that for lack of facilities?
So it is the reason why it pops up there. I would say so. The special events that y'all do in partnership with the town of Silva, y'all are ranked, I think, within the top 10 for that type of event. I think you're 7 or 8 or something like that in the nation. The reason why I think that popped up there and what we heard from public input is you're doing such a good job with that. They would like to see more and maybe larger scale events. You're kind of confined with the spaces that you have for your current events. So it's more of an expansion on that.
You won't be for long. We've got a fairgrounds fixing to open.
Yep, we recognize that. So that's understandable. And we know with those details still being ironed out, that may be able to help take care of some of your special events needs. We also did see that there was some desire for indoor type of events. So that'll be something for y'all to explore in the future. Good question. Anything else before we move on? Okay. So what I want to do, now that we've touched on that public input data and we've also touched on the benchmarks, I want to go through your programmatic data a little bit and then we'll just quickly get into your recommendations. What we have up here are 2 different kind of measures of your Parks and Recreation programming. On the left-hand side, we see the types and categories, and we see an increase. That means that the types of programs that you're offering are increasing. Your Park and Rec department's offering a more robust offering. That's a good trend. And on the right-hand side of this, we see that your program participation is also increasing. Both of these are indicative of a very healthy Parks and Rec department. Sometimes you'll have an inverse relationship or you'll see some decline, which would indicate that you may need to make some changes. This is all to say that your Parks and Rec department is actually doing a very good job programmatically and are continually expanding. We see this. We also did some deeper analysis in the more specific program. I'm going to draw out one particular thing. Here is you have one area of your soccer program is pretty much capped out. That's not surprising given that there's not a whole lot of flat land in the county. So this means that it's not likely capped out because there's not more interest. It's more likely that you can only program so long in so many spaces. So that's important to understand. And really, that is a really high standout for that one particular area. So moving on, another piece is your multi-purpose fields, and this correlates with that desire for soccer fields. Most of your programmatic area, you were within benchmark for a lot of your facilities, and you'll find that within the report. You have a couple areas where you're below benchmark. One of them is those rectangular fields, your soccer fields. That's not because y'all haven't tried to do that. There's just God who's stopped making flat land for y'all. And so that's just something to bear in mind. We're not going to be able to change that, so we're going to have to look at how we actually serve that increasing need within the context that you have. I'm going to go through here quickly. Whenever we did the benchmarks for your facilities, if you see green on here, it means that you're within benchmarks to those NRPA standards. If you see red, you're below benchmark. If you see blue, it means that you're above benchmark. The key things that I want to draw out here is, one, you're seeing a lot of green, but the other thing is areas where you see red, y'all are actually already planning for growth in those areas that are also reflective of what your public wants. That just means that what we found from the public and what we found from benchmark is need. Y'all are actually already moving in those directions. That doesn't happen by happenstance. That means that your Parks and Rec department and your leadership have a good understanding of what the public wants, and we found that through our plan, and y'all are actually moving in those directions already. We also find that with a couple other things. There are some things that there's some additional need that you're going to be needing to look at in the future. Some of them are a little bit easier to address. Some of them are more difficult. So Your community center. You have some gym space. But there are areas in the county, in particular in the northern part, that in the future you're going to have to look towards that. Your multi-purpose fields, we've kind of already talked about that. That you're going to have to get creative in how you meet that need. There's the recreation center and the stadium. You don't always find a stadium in particular communities, but as you review through your plan, we do think that there's some opportunities not only to serve your residents but also attract some visitors. So continuing with your benchmarking, your trails, you're well below benchmark for your trails. I want to pause there for a second because there's a wealth of trails in the area that are run by the National Forest and so on. This is more reflective. There's also a desire from the public for more trails. So the work that you're doing to add additional trails and greenways is a good effort and is likely one that's going to need to continue on in the future. So I'm going to start to wrap things up. So as you're going to read through the plan, some of the key takeaways that you need to be looking at, we're seeing that you do need to continue to expand your trail and greenway network. That's not going to happen overnight because of you're going to have some topographical differences or issues because of that. Updating some existing parks, in particular in the Casters area, the planned work that you have down there, we do reflect and see that is a high priority need there. More event space and environmental education, and ideally developing spaces that not only serve your residents, but also continue to grow your tourism, so having kind of dual purposes within that. Moving on, marketing and branding. So you're doing a good job of communicating to your public, to your residents, what you have in terms of your recreation facilities. We do think you could do a little bit more to actually attract residents or visitors through that. And a little bit more outward focusing marketing will help grow that outdoor recreation economy that you have. Staffing wise, you're generally doing a pretty good job with staffing. We do think y'all made an outstanding investment in your aquatic facilities. Just attracting lifeguards is difficult nationwide right now, but your lifeguards right now are being pulled in a bunch of different directions because of the area needs for aquatics. So that's something that you're going to have to focus on. And then the last piece, and I'm going to open it up for questions, is looking at the park assets that you have in a different light so that you can attract more visitors. We really think that there's some opportunities for you to look at developing facilities that, one, serve your residents, but also capture revenues from visitors, and then taking the revenue that comes from visitors and reinvesting it back into your park system that helps subsidize that cost for your residents. So you're going to see that being carried throughout. So this, again, was meant to be an overview of the plan. There's a lot more in-depth and a wealth of information within the plan. Certainly, as questions come up, we're happy to answer those through your Parks and Recreation leadership as you move forward towards consideration for adoption of it. But now I'll kind of pause there and see if there's any additional questions. But I got to tell you, y'all, the county is doing very well, not only serving its residents, but also attracting visitors.
Like the funds that come in that you were just saying through visitors, wouldn't that have to come through the TDA?
Yeah, so good question. So there are times whenever you get those indirect captures through heads and bed taxes and stuff like that. There's also a lot of times whenever Parks and Rec departments develop facilities that they directly capture revenue. So we see that through campgrounds, through RV centers, through event spaces, and stuff like that. And then you take whatever revenue that is, and let's say that you reinvest it back into developing trails, which then subsidizes the cost that you would be putting county dollars toward.
I can tell you one observation I've had is you're saying that we really should have more soccer fields, outdoor athletic fields. Mm-hmm. There's no telling how much money's been spent from the county for fields that nobody can use. For example, all these schools, they put locks on the gates. Nobody can access them most of the time, which I'm not saying that's right or wrong. But if you're talking about tourism people coming in here wanting to play softball or soccer, they're very limited on places to do it. But we have a lot of places we've paid for that they could do it.
Yeah.
So that's one thing to take into consideration here is there's fields everywhere that nobody's allowed to use unless they're on the 7th and 8th grade baseball team or.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of money been spent on the county that's not accessible for visitors.
Yeah, I do think that's a good point, and that's something that we're seeing communities all around the Southeast grapple with. And there's actually some 2023 research that was done by the Pew Charitable Trust that what happened over the last 2 decades was that Parks and Recreation has always, most parks departments have a good joint use relationship for school facilities. But then what's happened is anytime that school facilities have been invested into, maybe back in the 80s and 90s and stuff like that, the idea was that those can also serve as park facilities, and then school-based safety issues that are happening kind of nationwide are impacting and limiting how much you're able to access those. So that's something that it's not, it's an issue that Parks and Rec departments across the country are trying to grapple with. How do you actually access some of those facilities that may have been developed through joint use, but because of those safety issues, that the access is getting more difficult. So I don't argue with you.
Like some of our fields, like the two fields in Cashers, are very rarely used for soccer.
Yeah.
Parents drive their kids to Cullowhee and only focus on Cullowhee as the.
Yeah.
I get it; it's kind of the central portion, but we're doing a disservice to kids in terms of where they can go, especially when you see soccer as the kind of the outlier of limiting attendance, and I think we can do a better job of that.
Yeah,
4 and 5 year olds don't need to travel to Cullowhee for a soccer game, and especially when they're not playing on a full size field. So
yeah.
Kind of think about how many baseball games are at those two fields. I don't see many, so maybe we repurpose those for something better.
Yeah, I do think, if we were down in eastern North Carolina where there's flat land everywhere you looked, that is a little bit less of an issue because like, all right, we want more ball fields. Let's just throw it out in that field over here. Y'all are having to grapple with a county that is geographically spread out, and trying to find flat space in the central part is difficult. So it really heightens the focus on those partnerships and making sure that those are done well. I will say that one of the things that came out through the focus group meetings is that your department really does do a good job with partnerships. It's difficult no matter where you're at to make sure that protecting the asset for school use, but then also opening up for public recreation. It's always a kind of a tricky dynamic.
There's always an issue with referees.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
You can't have.
Yeah.
You can't break up all the referees because
Right.
then you're really kind of limiting your
Yeah.
games as well. So
Well,
it's a tough job.
as you're reading through this, I really want you to see y'all are doing an excellent job. You've really invested well. The community would like you to continue to invest. There's kind of a light at the end of the tunnel that, you've got a couple nuanced things that help you round out your system, but you've invested well. And it's not only serving your residents well, but it's also attracting visitors, which is helping you create that local economy. But it's been a pleasure to work with y'all, and we're happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Nate. Is there any additional questions?
All right. Well, I appreciate your time, and thank you.
Thank you, Michael. All right, moving on now to informal comment. First up this evening, we have Chris Bogardus. Quick reminder to everyone coming to public comment. Our public comment is 3 minutes. We're here to listen, not respond. And there is a timer available for you guys on the screen right there in front of you at the podium. So with that, Mr. Bogardus, thank you.
Okay, I wanted to talk about the banning of a book called Huck Finn by Mark Twain. It was banned years ago in California. A school teacher named Rafi Esquith didn't like this ban, and he took it to court. He took it to the commissioners, just like I'm doing right now. And he found out that the people who were banning the book had not actually read the book. They just read like little portions, little handouts, little pamphlets. And Mark and Rafi Esquith wound up winning this little battle. I went to check up on it today. This was 30 years ago. I'm doing my homework. And it turns out the book was effectively banned. Huck Finn has got plenty of racial epithets in it. It is insensitive. And a school teacher wouldn't want to teach it because they don't want the pushback. So that's how that works. Teachers cannot risk losing their license by teaching rough language and racial epithets. That said, I believe that Jackson has already won this book banning thing and has won over the library. They've triumphed this little battle. But be careful what you wish for. We're not looking too good right now in front of the medical professionals. They want to come somewhere that's open minded, relatively liberal, and, wealthy, educated. That's not us right now, or it doesn't seem to be us. Remember, the elites run this country. They laugh at us Southerners, us Mountainers, us hillbillies. I've lived up north. I know what it's like to be called a Nipsatuckian. So they like it when we wash their dishes. They like it when we do their laundry. They like it when we clean their toilets. That said, it would be good to drop a lot of this book banning stuff, this trouble that the library's been going through, and focus on things like roads and parks and all the other incredible amount of stuff you guys get to deal with. Thank you very much.
Yes. Next up this evening, we have Mike Jones. Mr. Jones.
Mike Jones, leftist. Believes that's the title that you gave me. The commissioners gave me and others a pamphlet entitled Why Jackson County Should Exit the Fontana Library System. But I suspect there are other leftists seated behind me tonight, as well as watching this stream. Those who are leftists, communists, Marxists, socialists, anarchists, radicals, liberals, trade unionists, and vegetarians. I requested and received, thank you very much, a list of 256 books mentioned in that pamphlet, books considered inappropriate and physically present in the shelves of the Silver Library. They are not, and you can go and check for yourselves. You obviously haven't. They are in the North Carolina Cardinal Interlibrary Loan System, which means they could be in 230 local libraries throughout our state in more than 60 counties. I have not read all 256 books, and neither have you. Actually, I did read one. I am an Elvis fan, and I read Who Was Elvis Presley? And I had to get it from the Fletcher, North Carolina Library. It was as insipid as dishwater, and I don't know how it made the forbidden list. It's part of a juvenile book series that includes Who Was Julia Child, Who Was Robert E. Lee, and Who Was Jesus. The last one has not yet made the inappropriate list. Not yet, at least. There are some controversial books on that list, and they have been brought up in these meetings, such as The Bluest Eye. And you have been told there is a simple and effective way of challenging these books. But do you know that not one individual, parent, or commissioner has appeared at the library to do that? Not one. So it's not really about the books, is it? It's about power. And it's about getting control of the library and its facilities. It's just taken a while for it all to come out. And we wonder what's next. I have to admit that I lied to you earlier. My dad raised my brothers and me on Marx, Groucho. And I guess by your standards, that makes me a leftist.
Mr. Jones. With no one else signed up for public comment, we'll move on to our consent agenda. And first up this evening, we have Ms. Fox with our finance report for December.
Good afternoon. Go over the highlights for the month of December. The general fund revenues collected to date, $66,384,542, that's 61.79% of budget. The expenditures, $46,833,733, it's 45.74% of budget. The revenues at the end of December were $19,550,809, more than the expenditures. The ad valorem taxes collected are at 88.11% at $49,920,973. The motor vehicle taxes collected, $846,001. That's 39.43% of budget. And the prior year collected is $159,481. That's 31.9% of budget. We received the sales and use tax distribution for the month of December, which represented September sales. That amount was $2,060,523. It was 10.89% more than we received in December of 2024. The Article 46 distribution was $232,011, and the average increase for the fiscal year is 9.03%. The landfill disposal fees collected is $2,434,453, 75.3% of budget, and the prior year landfill disposal fees $34,427. That's 45.9% of budget. The growth revenues, the code enforcement, environmental health, and registered deeds are all above where their percentage is for the fiscal year. The general fund contingency at December 31st was $940,214. I'd be glad to answer any questions on the report.
Questions for Ms. Fox? If not, we'll move on to item number 2 in the budget ordinance amendments.
Okay, I have 3 amendments. The first one is general fund. It's an increase of $17,231. We had one donation for animal shelter and low-income energy assistant program. There's an increase of $17,231 in it. The second one is for school improvement fund. It's a transfer fund balance to the improvement fund that's already been budgeted under project ordinances. It's just been able to move those funds forward.
Was that for Fairview?
Partially. And the middle school. And the third one is for the Green Energy Park Fund. It's an increase of $37,724. They received the North Carolina Arts Council grant. $18,862 of that is for sub-grantee awards, and the other is for the Glice Festival and Arts Camp they're preparing for.
Questions regarding our amendments? Thank you, Ms. Fox.
Thank you.
Now we'll move on to Ms. Brooks and our tax collector refund reports.
Good evening. So for the month of December, the current taxes collected were $15,011,962. The delinquent taxes collected were $28,999. The total collections for the month were $15,826,624.75. There were refunds of $32,579.26 and releases of $934.27. The collection rate at the end of the month was 83.96%. Any questions?
Where does the refunds come from?
A lot of it is like if their mortgage company paid and they forgot and they've paid to. Yeah. Thank
Questions?
you.
If not, I'll seek a motion for approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. Moving on now to new business and our audit report from Mr. Braswell and Martin Starnes and Associates. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Board of Commissioners. My name is Matt Braswell. I'm going to be going through your 2025 audited financial statements. This is a snapshot in time. This is as of 6/30/2025. So first off, we issued an unmodified opinion, which means it's a clean opinion. All your financial statements are in accordance with GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles, and everything's materially correct. Very cooperative staff, as always. It's always a pleasure working with Darlene and everyone involved in the audit, able to get us everything in a timely manner, to be able to get everything prepared, get your audit report, everything like that in a timely fashion. It's just very, very smooth audit process, and we do really appreciate that. No findings or question costs. No material weaknesses or significant deficiencies noted within all the procedures that we do, from interim procedures to final procedures. So overall, very, very clean report. And so just some of the highlights here. You'll see your 2024, this is as of 6/30/2025. 2024 compared to 25, slight increase in collection rate there, increase in revenues from 24 to 25 in your property taxes there. And then just to go into your general fund summary here, you can see revenues exceeded expenditures by roughly $8.9 million in 2025. Revenues increased about $4 million there, mainly due to ad valorem taxes increase there, sales tax increase as well. Expenditures up about $5 million. That was mainly public safety, some human services expenses, and education as well. And then total fund balance, this is going to show a 3-year trend there, as you were trending up in 2024. And then in 2025 had a decrease. This is total fund balance of roughly $2 million in your general fund, which was budgeted for all the projects and everything that you're doing within the county. And then to show your fund balance position, as of 6/30, we'll take your total fund balance in your general fund of $51.7 million there. Take out all the restrictions, which note receivable of about $770,000. Restriction for register of deeds, stabilization by state statute. That is accounts receivable that is not received in yet, so not in the form of cash. So you cannot appropriate that. And then you're assigned and committed. That mainly is capital reserve, conservation, and preservation funds to give you an unassigned fund balance of roughly $37.4 million in your general fund. And so when you compare that to the prior year, you got a decrease of roughly $3.2 million there in unassigned fund balance. And then to kind of go into reserves on hand there for the general fund. So what we like to look at is your unassigned fund balance that we talked about in the previous slide. We like to take that into account, divide that into your expenditures for the year as well, to kind of give you what your reserves are. And so roughly 8% is 1 month reserve on hand. So you can see the decrease from 24 to 25. So roughly about 4.5 months supply on hand of unassigned fund balance in your general fund. And then to go through your top 3 revenue sources and top 3 expenditures, property tax, this is going to be for every local government there. You can see an increase of roughly $1.4 million or 3% for 6/30/2025 at 6/30/2025. Your other taxes, now this is going to be mainly consists of your sales tax. It does have beer and wine distribution as well in it, but you can see about 5% increase or $1.3 million increase there in this revenue source. Restricted and governmental, this is going to be your federal and state grants, DSS type related grants as well. So overall, very comparable to the prior year. Had a slight decrease of about $240,000, but overall, this revenue source comparable to the prior year. Top 3 expenditure functions, general government. Now this is going to have your governing body, your finance, your IT, everything like that. So you can see a decrease of roughly about $600,000 or 3%, but overall fairly comparable to the prior year. Public safety had an increase there of about 2.5 or 11%. Had additions in salaries and benefits and also capital outlay. So a lot of this is going to fluctuate depending on, when your capital comes in, different things like that. So one year to the next. So capital outlay had a little bit of effect on this as well. Human services had an increase there of roughly 1.2 million or 6%. Increase in salaries and benefits and operating costs there. But overall, had an increase there. Any questions, comments, concerns, anything you would like for me to go into any more depth or anything like that?
Questions from the board?
Good job, Darlene.
Yeah.
And your staff.
Brazel?
Thank you. Y'all have a great night.
All right, there's a motion. I'd like to approve the audit report.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. Moving on now to Ms. Fox and request for public hearing on February 3rd.
I'd like to request a public hearing for financing on February 3rd at 6:20 p.m. We had to re-advertise the prior public hearing that we had.
Is there a motion to approve this public hearing?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fox. Next, we have Mr. Poston and request for another public hearing on the same day, or I'm sorry, February 17th.
Good evening, Commissioners. Requesting a public hearing to review the historic preservation ordinance. It's a standalone ordinance that's separate from our unified development ordinance, but it governs our historic preservation projects. Mainly what the historic preservation ordinance does is twofold. One, we focus a lot on historic education in Jackson County. The commission also runs the local government or our local historic preservation program, which is similar in a lot of ways to the federal protected program. In this program, you enter it, and it has to be approved through the local governing body. But we also work through SHPO, the State Historic Preservation Office, to try to preserve historically significant and architecturally significant properties and structures. And with that comes a local tax incentive deferment program. But in return, that property owner is limited on how they make repairs and or renovations to those structures to preserve the integrity. We run it mainly as a voluntary program. We have 3 structures. One of them is the Mordecai Zachary House, which is on the property of the Castries Historic Society. One of them is the Webster United Methodist Church, and one of them is the Hooper House. But they have to go through this ordinance, and this ordinance sets up how we manage these projects and these properties. Third one is the Hooper House, where the downtown. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what this ordinance does is set out, based on state statute, how this happens. We've worked with our planning board, the Historic Preservation Commission. Mr. Kuvis has also reviewed this. When we got into it, the state statutes have changed enough over time that we had to modernize the whole document. We went to start off with a red line. Everything was red, so we're just going to recommend repeal and replace. Mainly statutory references, some language references that have changed over the years. The only other thing that we're doing to try to streamline some of this is we've developed, which is acceptable, administrative approval process for minor changes like a window breaks and you need to repair it. It doesn't have to go through a full board review. It comes just to staff, and we help work through that. But that's the request that we set the public hearing for February 17th at 6:25 to consider those changes.
Does that mean the state has lifted its restrictions on ordinances? Or?
So the biggest restriction on that is if you're dealing with non-residential properties that may become non-conforming because of the rules, may become grandfathered because of the rules, and then you have to have some written consent. So all we're doing is modernizing the language. We're not changing the program, and we're not putting any more rules or any less rules on anybody. We are just simply, coming back into conformance with some of the changes over the years. And
Still hadn't lifted that.
That still stands, yes, sir. But this would not trigger anything that would be prohibited by the state.
Any additional questions? Any additional questions for Mr. Poston? If not, I'll seek a motion for approval of the public hearing.
So moved.
And second?
Second.
All in favor? None
Thank you very much.
opposed. Thank you, Mr. Post. Next up, we have an EDA grant application, and Ms. Henry. Good evening.
Good evening. Hope y'all are doing well. I'm gonna try and make this as painless as possible. I am going to give each of you something. Okay, so what you have in front of you, we've been working on this for quite some time. After Hurricane Helene, the EDA, the Economic Development Administration, came out with some disaster supplemental grant program. And within that, they had 3 different categories that were sort of eligible funding opportunities. And we felt like this opportunity was best suited based on the criteria and the eligible guidelines that they were giving us. There were 3 different paths that we could choose depending on the project that we had. And we've decided to choose what they call the implementation path. And this is for a standalone construction project, which ranges anywhere from $2 million to $20 million grant application. And we decided to go forward with the Workforce Training Center on the former TNS property where we're hoping to put the industrial park. And so we have been working behind the scenes for quite some time with an engineering firm. And that is part of this other handout that you have in front of you. And this is really just a site plan, kind of showing you what this building, this project could look like. And just really the outside. We're working on the floor plan of it as we speak. We actually have a call in the morning to really fine-tune that. Part of the application requirements require us to do a preliminary engineering report. So we've been working with this firm, these documents together, and we are really close to having that. We have to have that really before we can finish the rest of it. Once we have that, we'll have a budget. We'll be able to put all of the narratives and all the documents together that are required. We've been working on other due diligence on the property itself, getting it to this point. All of that information will also go into the application. There is a match requirement, and so that's the draft letter that you have in front of you. And so there is a match. Generally, it's higher, but because it's disaster related, it's a 20% match. We are kind of estimating this to be around a $10 million project build. So that's about $2 million match requirement. We are also exploring other matching funds as we go through this. So this letter, working with Hillary with the EDA office to make sure that the language, you can kind of see in this letter where we're saying that we are going to be, we are currently pursuing additional funding opportunities for the same scope requested from EDA to support this project. So I'm not asking, it might happen, but I'm also looking for other grant funding to support the match requirements. So just wanted to let you know, I have to have this commitment letter approved by this board. It can be signed by Kevin to go with the application. We are hoping to have this application ready to submit probably by mid-February. This is a first came, first serve grant pool of funding, so we really are trying to get this in as soon as possible. There's a lot of other grant applications that have already been submitted in this region, so we're just trying to get our application in front of the right people as quickly as possible. So I'm asking the board to approve and give Kevin the authority to sign this letter. I have it in here to say up to $4 million. That will change once we know what that application total is.
How big is this building?
we're estimating it from 18 to 20,000 square feet.
And what exactly is this workforce training center? What will they do?
So that is to be determined a little bit. The goal is when you think about the value of having a property like this, not only in Jackson County, but in the region, what are the trades that aren't currently offered at Southwestern Community College? And so we've been working with Southwestern along the way to try and really fine tune their capacity at their current location, but what trades, what skills can they not offer because they don't have the space to do that? But it's more than that. It's putting it here at what will become an industrial park for businesses. This is a really good recruiting tool to have this workforce training center right next to the larger manufacturers and businesses that will basically be co-located on the same property. So think of your electricians, your plumbing, construction.
Will it be like classrooms for them to?
It will be a lot of dirty space. So it will be some lab space, dirty space for them to actually be in this. We've went to Catawba Community College. They have a really amazing workforce solutions center. It's about 80-something thousand square feet, but it's done well. And so we've kind of used some of what they've learned over the last several years, working well, what the instructors like about the layout of that space. So that's what we're leaning in towards. And I don't know if Kevin, if you want to add anything to some of these discussions we've been having.
Yeah, it's kind of like an all-inclusive. So basically, you're trying to attract employees because that's the biggest stumbling block with new businesses coming in. If they already have that training center on site, then it's just a one-stop shop, and hopefully we can, attract a lot more industry and a lot more businesses to that location. So.
And the idea too is that it's fairly flexible, and that's one of the things that Catawba has done well is this employer that has come in, they need this skill trade. So they adapt space within that to be able to train it. And if 3 years down the road it needs to be something different, it can be that. And so that's what we're trying to develop is something that kind of meets all of those needs.
I think it's a great idea.
Thank you for training to work. So
Yeah. Well, the other thing too, when you think about all their existing employers, the community college has a customized training program, and they do the incumbent trainer program. But sometimes it's really hard to find a space to train them. And so this would also provide them that space where they could train the existing workforce, not only at this property, but Jackson Paper and some of the other manufacturers, even within the region.
So this could potentially become part of Southwestern?
I don't know how you want me to answer that one.
But yes, we are going to be relying upon our educational partners in the development of this. So whether it becomes a part of their campus as an outreach center, or if it's just a partnership from the standpoint of, them doing the curriculum and them being their educational component, we don't know yet. We have engaged. They have been part of this process from the beginning.
Yeah.
We have had definite conversations about it, but right now it's still too early. Yeah.
We got to get the grant first.
I mean, I think that's something else we ought to address with the superintendent because the hub's right there.
Mhm.
They have such a good workspace for welding or whatever, like a shop, that we could implement and need to look at, in my opinion, for kids that are already struggling and are not going to go to school.
Yeah.
To where they could learn a trade while they're at the hub.
Yeah, and they can do that in partnership with the community college too.
Because the hub will be right there with all of this.
Absolutely.
We're blessed to have SCC. Thank you, Don Thomas.
Aren't you a board member? Supposed to say that.
What did you say?
I said, aren't you a board member of that? Aren't you supposed to say that?
It's not.
Oh, okay.
With that,
One other question real quick.
Sure.
The $4 million, Darlene, where's that coming from? Yeah, that's where we're at.
it could be as low as
Could be.
2, and it just depends on what we're awarded, I guess.
I would need to know more about that because from what I see, and construction all the time. Kids can get out of high school, go to an electrician, get paid right now $20 an hour to learn to be an electrician from an electrician, or a welder, or a builder up in my area. Why would they go pay to learn a trade when they can get paid to learn a trade? I don't see the value of it from what I see in my everyday. I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me from what's happening at this point. But I'm not against the idea
Right.
because more people that can know to do more things, the better off we are. But
Well, and I think too, you think about it being a pathway, and sometimes if it's not something that they're exposed to until afterwards, then that is the path that they go. But if they know about it early enough, they can do it in partnership with the community college, and it's paid for even when they're in high school. So there are ways, and that then creates a pathway, and it could be something that requires certification, and that's part of it. Yes.
can't.
Right. And I think that it also depends on what employers end up locating on this property. And that's why it is flexible space. We have a housing shortage. We have a workforce shortage within those trades. We don't offer any of those trades now. Well, I'll say any. We have certain ones, HVAC and welding and others. But how can we improve those? And how can we diversify our workforce in a way that puts them on a better path? And I think this is one of those.
I agree with you.
When an employer comes in and builds an 80,000 square foot facility, they're going to want more site specific kind of training to go with those jobs. And that's kind of what this is also geared towards is not just our current population, but anybody that may want to move to this area and find a trade to jump into. So.
But, well, do y'all think since we might have to have a tax increase that we ought to wait and see what the numbers come in at?
I think
Well,
we
we
have
have
to have the
to-
letter, yeah.
They have to have the letter from us saying we'll do the match before they can submit the grant.
And it's important to know, we have already been talking to other funders that have programs that will help us with some of the match dollars. So I'm not asking, right. It's the timing, because these are first come, first served dollars. And once they're exhausted, we've missed our window.
So if we're awarded the grant and we decide we don't necessarily want to do a tax increase, are we held to that $4 million?
What's the scope?
We would lose the grant, obviously.
Well, it's like scope of, so if we build a $10 million building, then our match is $2 million.
I understand.
So we could scale that back depending on what that is. And so that's where sort of EDA would kind of come in and say, here's what you've committed, here's what you want to build. I mean, it's like,
I'm not saying it's not necessary. I just hate to have any more tax increases.
I understand
Where
that.
I'm at, because we already had one last year from.
Yeah, this is, I would say that this is an opportunity for generational change. And I've talked with, other people across the state, and, we've got an opportunity to do something really unique and really great on a piece of property that we're fortunate to have, that is flat, that has opportunity. And we could very well miss that opportunity. And if we don't take advantage of this grant and this opportunity, how long are we going to wait for an opportunity to find another $10 million? And I'm not saying we're going to get it, and we might not do it, but I'm one of those people. I want to put, my name in the hat and try our best.
Grants are wonderful, but if you've got to match grants, how many can you take on without? Somebody's got to pay for it.
Right.
So we got to be careful.
Right.
Every time somebody offers you a grant of $60 million, doesn't mean it's not going to cost you $25 to get it.
Right.
And somebody's going to have to pay for all this. That's all I'm saying. I'm
Yeah.
not saying I'm against it.
Yeah.
It's just we can't keep on taking grants that we got to match stuff.
Right.
Without everybody's willing to pay.
Mm-hmm.
We are doing a lot of fund development, so with this is just the first draft. This is the first piece of it. Once we, get the numbers from the PER and kind of solidify the number, then we can go after other funders that we've already got kind of lined up So that.
They're
that's
waiting
gonna-
on that number.
That's our hope is gonna meet that match requirement, but we have to have this first to make sure we can get this grant, because there's no reason to go after the other one if we don't have the first one.
So do you think that, those funders that you're talking about will fund the whole match?
So even if we say yes, that we're gonna do it, sorry, go
You
ahead.
good?
Yeah, nothing is guaranteed, but, in our experience, that this is the process you go through. It's a fund development mechanism. You don't have to sign it until they give you the grant document. And so it's like any other grant. I mean, if you can't perform at the end, then you give it back up. But at this point, this is the process you have to go
And
through.
any other people that we had to give us money for it would take away from that total.
Right.
2 million. So if we had somebody give us, or a total
Yeah.
of people giving us $1.5 million, we'd only want 500.
Right.
So, yeah.
And that's what we're working on. And we've got those partners lined up. We have several opportunities, and some of which are under development as we speak, that hopefully will be announced within the next couple of weeks, that make this a lot more attainable.
Did you say that was funders that you're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
What about businesses looking to come to the area?
Yeah, I have a short list of that too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is not generating any revenue, it's just generating services that could help businesses that are coming to the area. Is that
Well, it
correct?
generates revenue because it creates jobs, and those are higher paying jobs, and that is part of your
I mean, directly, we're not gonna be charging,
Lease space or
leasing this
No.
out to a community college or charging kids so much.
No,
So there's no direct income from it, just indirect.
correct.
Okay.
Any additional questions for Ms. Ms. Henry? Not, is there a motion to proceed with this grant application?
So moved.
Second.
I'll second it. But we better get some,
I'm working on it.
I trust you.
I'm working on it.
All in favor?
Well, this is just for the letter,
Yeah, it's
I'm
just a
voting on
letter.
giving
It's not
$2 million
really-
right
yeah.
now.
Right.
It's just a letter of, but we know how it's gonna be. It's gonna be tax increase all over the news and everything else, so we wanna make sure we don't want to do a tax increase for sure.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Yes. No.
Okay. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up this evening, we have transfer of a service handgun to a retiree who is coming up. Mr. McCoy is here from the Sheriff's Department to transfer Mr. Lovedahl his service weapon. Good evening.
Good evening. David Lovedahl, his last day is February 1st. Keeping up with tradition, we've always presented a retiree with their service weapon, and that's what we're asking for today.
Any objections to
There's some money involved, right?
$1?
$1.
Pay for it.
$1 paid in cash.
I'll pay for this one.
Okay. With all that, is there a motion to approve the transfer? of the
So
firearm?
moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. Moving on now, we do have a need to go into closed session this evening for legal, real property, and personnel. So with no further general business, is there a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Aye. None opposed. We are in closed session. Won't take Session, no action was taken. We do have one thing that we need to do, two things we need to do. We need to make an amendment to our agenda to include item number 10, which is the FRL agreement. And there's some wording changes in that that we'll get to in item number 11, which is a budget amendment. If there's a motion to approve this agenda.
The amendment has to be on the 17th. You're just going to be introducing it tonight. And
Not voting, just introducing it. Yeah. What's that? No,
the amendment's on there if it's for your consideration.
correct.
The budget.
Correct.
The budget amendment, we get voted tonight.
So
But
moved.
yes. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. None opposed. All right. So item number 10 is the FRL agreement amendment, and it's basically some wording in the section C regarding the collection of allocated funds at the end of the fiscal year. The amendment reads, after each fiscal year ends, any funds remaining in excess of the 25% or lower fund balance required by the budget financial policy must be reimbursed to the counties. This reimbursement shall occur within 15 days after the board approves the final amended financial report for June 30th, but no later than September 30th. The amount reimbursed to each county shall be based on its actual net surplus as documented in the aforementioned financial report. This amendment will be on the website and available for anybody that wants to see it. And we'll be discussing that on our February 17th meeting at 6:30 p.m. So
And that amendment passed the FRL board, correct?
correct. Moving on now to our budget amendment. We have one budget amendment for library contracted services, library capital outlay equipment. It's coming from fund balance. It is $350,000. If there is a motion,
Motion to approve the amendment?
and a second,
Second.
Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Hooper,
Yes.
Commissioner Bradstein,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Jennings,
Yes.
Chairman Martin.
No. With no further business this evening, is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor? All right. None opposed. You are adjourned.